That's possible in Second Life. You could be a slice of pie and be very happy for the next 10 years, you know, but you don't know that when you come in and spend $100 on your avatar because people poke you and tell you that's what you're supposed to look like.
So a visitor, so just to back up and restate that one, give people a free 30 days of a house and give them a visitor name that clearly conveys. I mean, I worry about obviously the negative sides of that is identifying somebody as a newbie isn't necessarily good, as we all know.
Well, I mean, it makes no difference. I think people would look at that differently, maybe. I don't think that they'd look at them as a new resident so much. I hate the other word, so I don't use it. New resident as such. I think it would look at them as a potential community member. If you're coming in as a visitor, you want to dip your toe in the thing, we could actually understand what that feeling would be like. We could actually understand that and be more embracing to a person to be a part of that community, and understand that they're going to have a home and what's involved there. And I don't know, I think that everybody's saying that, oh, people are rude to new residents. I think we still hold on to that, and I don't think it's always true.
Right. Yeah, I like your idea there, Snow Leopard. We've always talked about that. You started out as a glowing orb, so like what Sassy said, you didn't feel too pushed to designate an avatar. But another idea would be to use some avatars that we got from content creators and just give people a sort of a random avatar that looks pretty good so that they fit in when they went to places. What does everybody think about that?
I think vanity is important for new users. It's Ta. I think vanity is important for new users because I'm constantly changing my avatar, sometimes daily, and I get flack for it because people say, I don't know it's you. Can you stop changing your avatar? So I think that was because I went as a noob to an island that was public, and I saw the most beautiful avatar I could possibly imagine. So I'm constantly striving to look like that because that was my first impression of what was possible. Kind of like a child. There's some things you teach them when they're an infant that stays with them the rest of their life. So I think to give them some vanity when they log in might be important. Or no vanity at all, like you said, an object.
Yeah, exactly like Medea is saying there. It's an interesting problem, right? Because there's just looking good and knowing that you can create a very detailed or beautiful avatar if you want to, and then so that appeals to people's vanity. But on the other hand, everybody also comes here to be individually themselves to a greater extent, perhaps even than in the real world, and so it's like you have this tension between those two. But yeah, one of the things we've been thinking about is what if we just pull together some avatars that are best of avatar, that are demonstrative of the sort of avatars that you can ultimately create, rather than starting you off as an orb or starting you off as an avatar that is, goofy looking, or even one that looks like my old one here. It's not, unless you're me, it's probably not a very good strategy.
Yeah, you could talk to the big body creators and maybe have them donate a no-copy version.
Offering both avenues is a good choice, a little bit of both. Do you want to pursue yourself first, or did you want to pursue an adventure in the world first?
Yeah.
Or a little of both.
Well, they could also actually give a timed body out that could be only obtainable if you're a new user and could expire after so many days.
I was just going to say that. Perfect.
scripting possible. It's something that Linden Lab could actually approach people to actually do to help that, because I mean, if you've spent 4 days in a body and realized all these clothes you can buy and something, you've probably got more of a chance of actually purchasing it. But I, as Lilani said, I'm sort of, forcing anybody to buy anything and spend and do all those things is not my go-to. But sorry for all the ums. Yes. Go.
Yeah, you could do like a DRes script after 30 or 60 days or something.
That'd be kind of weird, though.
With a little
warning. A little warning, you're about to disappear.
Go find yourself.
You're about to DRes.
I found the other day, though, I had an interaction with somebody who asked where the shops were, and I said, what sort of shop are you actually looking for? Because they were a new resident, and they said avatars, and it made me go, oh no. Marketplace does a lot of damage in the sense that people see a whole thing and they think they're buying the whole thing, and they're often not buying the whole thing. Nothing against Marketplace, it's just not knowing the jargon or not knowing how it works. Or they are buying the whole thing, and often at times that whole thing is over a decade old and is full of ripped content. So there is this feeling of buying the wrong thing, making mistakes. It's often makes people feel like they've been made to feel worthless or bad or idiots. I've heard people say themselves, I would never call anybody that, but they feel stupid, and we've made them feel stupid, and that's a horrible thing. And then they leave.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the challenges with Second Life, and one of the reasons why we've probably sort of slowly declined a little bit in our population, is that we've made the depth and richness of what you can do even much greater than it was, say, when I left as CEO. But we've also made it so much harder that you end up with a smaller number of people, admittedly very fascinating looking people, but a smaller number of people sort of surviving as before. Like, we used to be able to give you enough when Second Life started. The only thing you could do to put on an avatar, there was no mesh or anything, so all of the avatar controls were pretty much there on day one. Like, you could go through everything in the library, and it gave you a pretty comprehensive overview of what you could do. And of course, as we all know, that's not true at all now, that both the difficulty and the range of what you can do is so much greater. So we're kind of ending up with this situation that I don't like, but I'm not exactly sure what to do about, which is that, you keep increasing capability. We keep increasing the capability of the world, but also at the same time making it more complicated. And we can't easily back the truck out of that alley because we can't make, we can't break content, Everybody here will say, well, you can break that other person's content, but just not mine. And the sum of those statements is we can break no content. Yes, like boat and visiprims, we broke them and then we have to put them back, right? So there you have it. And they work. Well, thanks, Sarah. I'm glad they work. Yeah. I'm glad we got that fixed. And hopefully Firestorm will launch soon, so get all that stuff into the latest Firestorm.
I think one question what might be to ask, I'm still thinking about your question about what makes people stay. And that's such a profound question, because that is really the secret to Second Life. And I just lost my train of thought. Darn it, I hate it when that happens.
I know the feeling.
I was going to say, if there was the one thing that we all have in common, and that is to create something. And whether it's yourself or a world or a prim or a script or something, I think that's the one thing that we all...
What about to meet other people, though? What about to meet other people?
And that depends. Some people are loners, and I'm much more gregarious here than I am in real life. It's just, it's easier. So it just depends. But I think it's also a discovery of self. Well, on many levels. But if I had to pick one thing that we had all in common, it was creating something,
desire to create.
and expanding your imagination, firing neurons. That's really what's going on here. The high.
Yeah. Yeah. Hikaru, totally. I came to Second Life wanting to create, but I stayed because of the community. This was something we'd always ask people in surveys, and they'd basically say that. Like, we'd find the person who was, a software developer and was building content here, and we'd say, well, why are you still here after 5 years? And they'd say, well, because I made friends. So, often coming for the creative instinct and then staying because of the people.
Right. And now you have a new issue. We've been here, some of us, for so long, now we're dying off. I mean, there's people just dying. Old age, health issues, and things like that.
I'm afraid so. Yeah, sometimes.
It's sad, but it shows the strength
shows
of
how
the community.
Sustained this is, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
For me, first roleplay pulled me in. That was the first thing that made me stay. And then I visited somebody's amazing world, one of the most famous builders to ever happen to Second Life. I went to their sim, and I was blown away. And I thought, when I grow up in SL, that's what I want to do. So I became a region designer. But at the time, I didn't know how to build. So I asked a friend, how do I build a whole world like that? And he sat down and he took the build edit menu and went through every box and told me what it all does. And I said, that's it, I'm hooked.
That's
great.
You know how I came to view Second Life is I coined a term called desktop jet setting, because you can really get a feel of people all over the world. I'm from New Jersey, and because of Second Life, I ended up in Germany. I'm in the UK now. I've made friends everywhere. I just think it offers a normal person, or a person that, especially in America, people don't get the same amount of vacation time. It gives them the opportunity to meet people everywhere, to engage in their culture, even when you see rebuilds of places like Amsterdam or just,
Berlin.
And if, desktop jet setting. I mean, you literally are sitting at your desk. You don't have to get all fancied up on a particular night, but you can still have this massively intriguing night and experience.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I know that for me, as a person who was 24 when 26, I guess, when the internet really happened. That appeal of being able to talk to people in other countries was one of the things that motivated me. All my initial work, and then after that, Second Life was like how amazed I was at the idea that I could talk to people in Japan. And I remember that, in 1994, when I was starting out working, I figured I might never go to Japan, especially in the early 90s, it seemed possible that I would never see it. And so the fact that I could go and have a conversation with somebody live that was in Japan was just so mind-bogglingly cool to me that it made me initially work on video and audio compression, and then made me work on Second Life after that. So I was asking about translation and subtitle. That's WebRTC. I said at the beginning, probably in the next quarter, we'll get it up and running. We've been a little slower because our Project Zero lead developer is also our WebRTC lead developer, but we're getting some help from some friends that have got some background in this stuff, and we'll try to get it out sooner. And then once we have WebRTC out, we'll immediately turn on all the subtitles and translation stuff.
I was going to say that one of the things I've noticed over the many years being here is that talking about meeting people from all over the world and interacting with them, I've noticed that quite a few people that have been that are content creators that are from different countries, non-English speaking countries, have gone from very little English to being very fluent in English. And that's because of Second Life, nothing else. It's Second Life that did that for them, and I think that that's incredible as well. I think one of the hidden things that we don't talk enough about is education. Second Life has... I joined Second Life and I didn't know how to copy and paste. So now I use Blender, I use Substance Painter, I use Photoshop, I use, so many of these things. And I think 90% of content creators in Second Life, sorry, made up number, were kind of the same. You know, they've learned all these skills. Most of these people would have to go to university or college or whatever to learn these skills, and they've learnt them on the fly in Second Life, and I think it's amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I had a thought that perhaps a
Sure.
way to get some people into SL is reach out to some real life groups that could benefit from having a meeting space. Also, on a side thought, I think, and this may be crazy, but I think it would work to like gravitate to some of like the bloggers and maybe make some people like into stars, like literally promote a star or two somewhere. As somebody, you know, I know Drax was on that some years ago, and it did work to a degree, but I mean, you know, like a contest or something to bring somebody from real life in, and not real life, but, you know, first life, and bring them in.
Yeah.
And, promote.
I know.
Like, people like to talk, they like to follow gossip, they like to, you know, you see what is that website that used to, sorry, I cut you off a second, but the website was called, it's a gossip website, and it's not the greatest thing, but if you took that same concept and you applied it, like, in a more legitimate way, and then, yeah, I'll shut up now.
About 10 years ago, when the people like NASA and that sort of thing were really kind of on a roll getting into Second Life, you don't know this, but I actually went to the head of the Department of the Interior, and I almost had SL in all of the Bureau of Land Management and Forest Services, in as far as their meetings go, because they were so into this. And I suggested how that meeting and that what you've done to get people in the world to get along here works so well, and to use that in that type of format it just seemed like a natural transition.
There's
and they
only
were all listening.
one reason why NASA and all of those big names left. We had a recession hit America in 2008. On top of that, the casinos, all the legalities came in and shut them down. So it was a double whammy. So all these people left because they had to pull all of their experimental funds out of this kind of thing. And it made the reputation, it made it look like SL was a flop, when in fact it was the economy that pulled back from innovative.
Yeah, but if that were true, that's a great point. Thank you. But the only thing I would say is if that were true, then why haven't in the last 10 years more people come back and set up meeting spaces for events?
We've been tainted by that in the meantime, I think. I mean, the longevity speaks for itself, I think.
It does. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say I sent you an email, you and Brad, a couple of weeks ago, and one of the ideas that I had in it was for us to establish a Blender land. And the idea was that if there was, say, 4 regions pushed together, one for a sandbox, one for something else, whatever, and we actually invited not just Blender, but the Blender community to actually stop looking down their nose at Second Life on their own forums in their own spaces because they think we're kind of a joke or whatever, to have an in-world presence for Blender and get them to set up something like tutorial spaces.
Brilliant.
They'd actually be in charge of it themselves. But things like actually set up designated times in the year where they actually have Blender people, like part of their actual own team, the people that work on Blender, to be present in world and actually give talks and actually have the opportunity to go on in world and find stuff out, because everybody actively wants to learn these things but they don't know where to start. And if Blender themselves opened up their hearts to us, so to speak, and provided source, and it could be a quid pro quo thing where you actually give them the land to do that because it benefits the whole community. And Blenderland could be a thing, Adobe could be a thing, you know, we could there should be an actual convention like that in Second Life, because we're such a large community of users for all those products, and if people actually came to people, it would be quite an amazing thing.
To extend on that,
I'd love to do that with Blender. I'm wondering whether anybody here would like to reach out to Blender and offer them that. I mean, we could certainly support it, but I think one of the tricks here is we don't, and this may be something that we need to fix through hiring, but at present, we don't have anyone who is a liaison in that way with, say, developer groups or a group like Blender. We don't actually have anybody employed here right now. So, I mean, I could work on it, but I'm busy. So that's like one of the tricks.
To extend on that, I think we should reach out to social groups. And off the top of my head, maybe, what's a social group? Anybody? Like
Veterans?
Yeah. And allow
veterans.
them, like, you know, it doesn't have to be a massive area. It could be 1,024 square meters of a little house that is offered to them, and say, you can have a chapter here. And you do that to different social groups. It could be veteran groups, exactly, Sassy. All sorts of, because where the developer thing through Blender is great, I think reaching out to people on a social level would be very beneficial. I happen to have a very large group on Facebook. It's a little bit over 600,000 people now, and it's writers. It's the largest English-speaking writers group on Facebook, Writers Helping Writers.
Wow.
And I aim to eventually I'm going through a bad divorce at the moment, so I can't mix a bunch of stuff together right now. But anyway, I'm aiming to bring a bunch of my writers into SL and develop a group on that basis. And then I just think it could be, yes, experimental, but I think a few people and a whole bunch of people will find it interesting.
Let's do that. I think that's great. I mean, I think one question for the community or for everybody here is, is there a group that you could serve as an ambassador to as a way of exploring that? Like somebody mentioned veterans, but there are all these different groups of people that I think might be really, really interested in using Second Life, but we sort of don't know that for sure. And so figuring out like a pathway to, I'm gonna keep harping on veterans because we just mentioned it, but figuring out like a strategy and a pathway and a marketing plan that would let us test, say, getting more veterans into Second Life. I would love that. It feels like something where, I mean, I guess the question would be, what could I do to help people in the community do that outreach? Hi, Valentina. Okay, you're a veteran. Cool. Tell us. It feels like
have a few sims that are dedicated to groups, like groups such as this, like I
think we've done that in the past, and it's been pretty unsuccessful. Like if we don't do any outreach, but we just say there is a sim that's for veterans or for,
Well, with the outreach this time, I mean, first do the outreach, and then designate a spot for them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that brings you back to the concept of how to train, I guess is a bad word, but how to introduce someone to the concepts of what is done here and what can be done and the potential. Because back to the Department of the Interior, I just had this vision of not only all of the museums, national parks, their visitor centers, all of their monuments, visitor centers, that sort of thing. They wanted something where they could connect with people, and this just clicked.
Yes, connect
that
with
I could
people.
see them all linking together here, not only with the public on a national level or even a world level.
Yes,
but why not for their own personal meetings and training for the Forest Service?
Exactly.
Stuff, because they're all over the country and they could just meet virtually, but in a world like this, it's a whole different effect. And I'll tell you, even though it didn't, just real quick, it didn't move on. Because with the discounts and all that coming out of the game and some universities pulling out and things like that. But I'll tell you, I did watch the museum where I launched this. It's a federal facility, and they are using the concept, and they have gotten a whole interactive computer database now with monitors and screens all over the building where they're getting people to interact. It's just not as broad, but they really like the idea. And I still think that has a potential to go big. And that's huge.
I just want to interject. everybody seems to be talking about everything being provided. The problem with Second Life at the moment is the economy is quite in trouble. I don't necessarily agree that if a group of people that have a group in real life should be able to walk in and just get free land. No offense, and I'm just being devil's advocate a little bit here. We all pay, and if we want to provide a group and stuff like that, it's pennies. We pay pennies for what we get from Second Life. So, you know, if a group of 50 people are able to converge in one place in a virtual world from all over the world, I'm pretty sure that they can all, you know, throw in $1 in US dollar once a month to contribute to a land space for themselves. I don't think that we should always be looking at everything being provided by Linden Lab. Sorry.
Well, that's
Personally, with my group, I would be providing the space for them. But for groups that you don't have in SL, for people that you want to bring in, if you bring them in by offering this to them, it can expand and it become more legitimized in the eyes of the world, rather than just being.
that's what I was
There's a
trying to
little
say.
bit of an
There's definitely
underbelly
a representative.
perception.
Mhm.
You'll need staff to do that for you. You need a small group of people, and then, you know, people that would help once they're in world as well, and have a guidance system in place. And it's not all for free. This would be, in effect, a business that, you know, that you would collaborate with people like that around the world.
Yep.
You'll need one marketing representative at least. And I have, years ago, I built a region about the paranormal, and I ran into by accident in SL a real life paranormal psychologist, PhD. She had connections. I
That's
ended
cool.
up giving lectures on my LEA build, and I brought in Dr. Dean Radin. He's the director of Noetic Sciences, Institute for Noetic Sciences in California. If you haven't heard
That's
of it,
cool.
he's proved that photons can be controlled by the human mind. So he inherited that whole institute from one of our astronauts. So he's like the leading physicist on this topic in the world. And he came into little old Tahiti Rays region and gave a lecture, a full PowerPoint presentation. And we brought in another one, Dr. Julia Mossbridge, who's working on consciousness and all of that.
Yeah.
And she gave a lecture on my little region for the LEA. And those are famous people, and they love the venue. Dr. Radin is a little more busier than Julia was. So Dr. Radin, who's still on my friend list, by the way, when he came in, he needed to be told everything what to do. But once he got it set, he gave his PowerPoint presentation without any problems. First day in SL. And Julia said she had so much fun. Dr. Julia Mossbridge, Professor
Yeah.
Dr. Julia Mossbridge, said, I'm coming back with another avatar, and I'm not going to tell you the name of it.
That's wonderful. I think I saw Melissa here say otherwise Discord is easier to use. Yeah, I want to make a point about that. That's sort of maybe I'm wrong about this, so it's interesting to talk about it. But another interesting question is why don't all those organizations and groups use Discord to meet with each other? And it's an interesting point, because although Discord has been pretty successful as a company, like Discord obviously has a lot of people using it, folks that are managing, you know, gatherings and stuff don't use Discord either. They don't use Discord and they don't use Second Life. And I've said this many times before, and I'm sure I'm only partially correct, but I just want to kind of restate it here because it comes up a lot. I think that the lack of nonverbal communication from our avatars' faces and bodies is extremely upsetting to most people. And so the problem is if you tried to do like a bank meeting or something, you know, and you had like, you know, 20 people you worked with at a bank and you stuck them all in Second Life, I think like 15 out of those 20 people would say, I don't want to come back. This is extremely uncomfortable. So that's kind of, and then I think similarly with Discord, I raised Discord because it's an example of, for the most part, voice and text only. So you don't even have a body in Discord. You know, you don't have an avatar, but you're in a room with voice and text. And the problem there is the same, which is like, why hasn't everybody just dropped Zoom and gone to Discord? Because, of course, Discord's easier. You can just go in a voice room and chit-chat with your friends, and you can have different rooms for different rooms in your office or whatever. It's an interesting thing to think about. I think that the same problem that Second Life has is one that Discord has as well, which is without facial information, and unfortunately pretty high resolution facial information, we're not going to get to, eBay users groups or whatever meeting up in here.
I think there's enough personal identity that is captured when you're an avatar in a game like
Exactly
this.
what I was going to say.
That is what's relayed and shared to each other on a psychic level, so to speak.
I think
intuitional level, and that's where
I think
people
what's
are connecting.
Yeah, I think what's interesting about Second Life is we've all learned to communicate in a different way. It's almost like emoji. And it's actually kind of similar to emoji because so as we all know, one of the problems with, there's explicit and implicit communication. So when somebody says something and your face expresses surprise in a few milliseconds, before you've even had a chance to think anything, you're conveying some information to them, right? And that's part of the fun of actually communicating with somebody, even on Zoom. I mean, Zoom sucks, but at least you can see the person's face, and so you can sort of start to establish a bond with them. And what we do in Second Life is we transmute all of that communication into entirely new forms. We transmute gestures into avatar expressions, or we use canned animations and a sort of a super extension of emoji, if you will, to communicate with each other. But the problem with that is that it's explicit. We have to trigger those commands with our fingers. We don't, we can't involuntarily communicate.
And that takes
It's
me
funny.
back to your concept of having some basic avatars that are also, something to be proud of, so to speak, vanity-wise, that you could give out. And then if you just tapped into the exterior world, like writers, veterans, Forest Service, whatever you're talking about there, if you tap into that if you have a person who's good at just hand-picking a few of those and test it out and see how it goes, and if those take off and do well, they'll spread word of mouth for you, and that whole thing will market itself.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing to be said is that there are probably different groups. Again, going back to what I said, if there's ways that we can work together and you all can help us find those groups and test. Like if somebody came to me and said, Philip, I went to the following veterans group, and I went through the following process of onboarding people. I took my laptop, this is where we started, this is what we did, and I step by step went through this experience, and half of the people that were there said they were going to sign up and jump in tomorrow. Then I'd have something that we could scale and repeat, right? The trick is we need to do that research on a case-by-case basis, because it's just not easy. You can't just put an ad on a bus and say, join Second Life. You just won't get anything from that.
Yes, you can,
So it's like,
and yes, you would.
No, we wouldn't. We've tried it.
Wrong countries then.
Sassy, you send me some sample media and a link, and tell me that the buy, tell me the buy I need to make, and I'll forward it. I'll consider it. But like buying billboards that say join Second Life is really a long shot, because as I said, the vast majority of people either have no idea what on earth you're talking about, or they're explicitly disinterested in it. They're like, this is a hard pass for me.
That's
the trick.
With the feds.
I think one of the hardest things.
Your description and your personal experience and your enthusiasm and passion, they capture that.
Right.
I think one of the main things is making something just making it easier in some way for the first month or two. Perhaps even giving people an opportunity to opt into a newbie experience, and then they're in a newbie area, or just go straight through to the regular one. I also think, like others said, and like you've highlighted, being interested in giving them an avatar that is up to a vanity spec. I think that's important. And I also think it's important to bring people to some level of finding recognition or finding a community. If people find a community or they find something that gives them a recognition that they don't get or that accentuates something that they're doing in life, that will give them a purpose here. So,
Yep. Thank you.
The learning curve is really, really hard. I just tried introducing somebody to Second Life tonight, and it was just very hard for them to just get all of the buttons, all of the moving around. If there was a way to just have even a newbie browser or a newbie, program that just focuses on the moving around and the changing the outfits and something like that, and doesn't have any of the other stuff on there to confuse. I don't know how difficult that would be, but and then elevate them.
One of the things that I've noticed about Second Life, and I brought it up to Brett once, and I kind of haven't mentioned it to you, Philip. Nobody hashtags Second Life. I do in everything I put on social media. Some people do, but not enough. I mean, we've got enough resonance on social media that we should be viral every other day. Like, we should be on that sidebar that says trending or whatever. And all it takes is including hashtag second, as far as I know, hashtag Second Life in everything we write. And I don't understand why we don't do it. Philip, when you post on Blue Sky or Twitter or whatever, you don't actually mention Second Life because you do that thing where you believe you're only talking to Second Lifers. You don't actually put it out there that if somebody was actually searching at hashtag Second Life to find what's being talked about, you would come up. And I don't understand why we don't do call outs every once in a while to just sort of say, hey, let's make us trend. Let's see how we can get ourselves to trend for the day. You know, put a 30-second something on Twitch or not Twitch, sorry, TikTok or something like that. Even if it's just yourself standing there looking pretty, who cares? Let's make it viral.
I'd love to experiment with that, like on Twitter, but I'm looking at Twitter right now while you're telling me this. And Sassy, I think the level of mentions to get on the Twitter sidebar, I don't even think we have that high a population overall active. I'm looking at the least popular thing on there right now, which is a word I don't know. And it's 10,000 mentions. And I think that's in a narrow window of time. So literally everybody on Second Life would have to post at the same time or something. I love what you're saying. Let's get everybody to do it. But I think you may be underestimating how large the real world is compared to Second Life.
No, but that's what I kind of mean. Like, I kind of mean, why can't we get every single person at a set time and a set day to do a hashtag Second Life? Like, just like, let's see if we can make it happen.
I love that.
You put an incentive behind that, you might be able to inspire people to do that. Some people won't do that because they're intimidated about why they're here. Some people are here for the underbelly, let's be fair. And some people are here not even aware of it and just in the educational or creator end of it. I think it's tainted. People they hear Second Life and they think naughty stuff. It's all about naughty stuff. They don't realize all of the positive stuff that has happened here. The Relay for Life, NASA being in here, the designers that we're all in here, and the potential. I mean, the potential for virtual reality. This is the birthplace. We're going to have some amazing, amazing stuff in the future, and this is where we're the pioneers. And
I'm not necessarily talking people's social media that's attached to their real life. We've got a huge amount of Second Lifers that social media under their Second Life personas. So I'm just talking about Sassy Scarborough, Gorgeous Aurelia, Mina Nakamura. We're all our SL avatars on social media, but we hit like 8 social medias every time we do anything. That's a lot times however many people are doing that. If you look at hashtag Second Life on Twitter, for instance, you can get some stuff, but everybody just believes they're only talking to the people that follow them that are other Second Lifers, so they don't do the hashtag because they don't think it's necessary. But I'm just saying, let's make it necessary. Let's get that opinion out there. And you're right, we're not advertised for the right things. Hair Fair raises lots of money every year. Relay for Life raises an astronomical amount of money every year. And these things are never the things that are brought forward. It's always the sex, sex, sex. But you know what? For some people, sex is therapy.
Yeah.
Well,
the other.
So I'll shut up.
Oh no, I was just going to say, give me some ideas about how we deprioritize sex without taking sex out of Second Life, because I think one of the problems is, from a marketing perspective, over time, sexually oriented material just wins, because just like violence or something, it's lurid. Like everybody likes. So how would we do that?
We need to present it the way fashion magazines have for not centuries, but decades. They have put
What's that?
women in fashion magazines. If you opened up a fashion magazine in the 80s and 90s, you'd see a woman in the middle of the magazine barely clothed or with no top on and just the pants. And women will read these and they won't even bat an eye or think about it, because it's just part of it. It's presented in an avant-garde sort of beautiful way. If we just focus on the fashion of Second Life, which is a huge thing, and we start presenting some of the bloggers and the people on Flickr, because there's a massive Second Life Flickr community, and those people do some amazingly beautiful art. There are star-worthy people. I mean, editorial level beauty on those pages. And if we just focus in on that, and then just bring in the risque a little bit, so we're a little bit embracing it, and then really put up platforms for more normal things like veterans and, writers and such.
I think your idea about, it would be so cool if we could get Vanity Fair or Vogue or whatever to just kind of say, hey, here's the Second Life section. That would be awesome.
They did that.
That would be awesome.
They had that. Belgium did a presentation on Second Life back in 2009 or something.
Yeah.
Grazia were featured in ball gowns and stuff. It was amazing. What an experience.
That's when all the designers were coming in.
Yeah.
But
of course, the trick was that the designers and everybody were coming in because they thought that everybody in the world was about to get an avatar. And then that didn't turn out to be true, and so the designers don't have enough, well, not necessarily designers, but say car manufacturers or shoe companies or whatever. They didn't have the reach to well, we're not of value to.
It was a crash, and they blamed it on everything else, because people don't want to admit their company was suffering, and they had to pull money back from inventive or research and development, basically. They had to pull money back to just stabilize things. The crash was bad, and Second Life suffered because it was on the cutting edge, and therefore, and I'm fully believing that, because, and they're gonna say, oh no, it just didn't look good for us, because nobody wants to say, oh, we were in a dangerous place, we had to pull this little bit of money out of this, because they had to pull the reins in on everything. That's how I feel. It does have the future, it does have the potential. That's just, there's no other course. I just can't see another course. VR, kids are not going to want a 2D internet in the future. We're talking another 10, 20 years. It's going to be, and even if Second Life is not exactly in the position in 20 years, which it may be, it's amazing it's come this far and is fantastic. Even if it's not, it's still a pioneering place. There's so much that has come through here, from figuring out DMCAs, figuring out legalities, figuring out how people communicate around the world. There's things that happen in Second Life that you've noticed happening in real life some years later. Just social nuances, like the word newbie. That was initially in Second Life. I don't remember that word really anywhere else. Content creators. I don't remember hearing that word anywhere else either, except SL first. Talking about content creation protection and all these other things. So yeah, I'm done with my schmeal.
Thank you. How many people here are using Fortnite Creative? Is Fortnite Creative going to take over? Separate topic. I like that. It's a good question.
At 300, and Bruce Willis did one of the Die Hard movies in SL. That was awesome. I was on the
Lilani, why would you rather be here yourself? What is it that's better about Second Life? Yeah, Fortnite has great physics.
Who's watched Mr. Moon's movie? Has everybody here watched Mr. Moon's movie about Second Life? Because that was amazing.
No, I don't. I'm not sure. I don't know which one you mean.
Okay, so I'm really picky about movies, but I've watched Second Life movies before, and to be fair, I've entertained them a little bit, and I'm just like, okay, this one is up there. It was absolutely amazing. Let me find the link. It is a comedy. It'll crack you up. It is everybody, even people not in Second Life that I showed this movie to, was cracking up. It's called, I'm going to go find it. I'm going to get the link and be right back.
Great. Fortnite offers a tragic death. It's great. Yeah, Fortnite is such a different experience, but they've done so much good work. It's interesting. Yeah, exactly. Fortnite Creative is quite different in terms of the capabilities and the intentions of it.
I wonder what would happen in Second Life if you could opt into a avatar death scenario where you, oh my god, where all of a sudden randomly if somebody got you, you returned to Ruth and you had to start over.
Yeah. But Fortnite makes me think about one of those statistics that I'm always saying in these meetings, which is that the other important thing to remember is that kids these days are actually not continuing to use avatar environments as adults. There's no evidence to support that. So it's interesting. Like it suggests more of the stuff that we're talking about, which is we're not actually there yet in terms of avatar environments for adults, for the most part, for most people. I have 4 kids and I watch them all use combinations of, I have 2 boys and 2 girls, but I watch them all do different things with Minecraft, Fortnite, and Roblox, and they all stopped completely using them at about, age 15.
That's awesome. And
My daughter's
sad
in
at the
SL
same
now.
time. I was just going to say that another thing, Philip, that you should look into is we've actually got a couple of content creators who have brought their children in now that they're age appropriate, and are actually joining their design teams.
That's great.
And that's been incredible. One designer that does clothing, their daughter has been sketching ideas for clothing for years, and her mum was making them, and now she actually is part of that process.
Yep. Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see how that changes. I'm just noting that statistically speaking, though some of us may have kids that have gotten in Second Life or are actively there, it's still interesting that no combination of Minecraft, Roblox, Fortnite has managed to entice, say, 21-year-olds to use a multiplayer virtual world. Not statistically. So it's, which I think is largely due to the nonverbal comms. Like I'm a dead horse on that, but.
I wanted to touch on something you mentioned a while back, and I got sidetracked about the Discord and Second Life being similar with not having facial cues, and that's why people haven't given up Zoom. I don't think that we should look at trying to supplement any of those other things and just be what we are, which is a creative extension of ourself in a virtual environment of shared experiences. So basically, you can sit with somebody at Zoom and have a conversation about what happened, about what's going on in your life. Same thing on Discord, but you can't share experiences like you can in Second Life. And so you can go visit places, you can walk around, so much so after you've done it a while and you go back and you try to recollect memories. If it was a really realistic sim, you have to sit there and say, was that real, or was that a real event that happened, or a Second Life event? Because the imprint is just such a, real imprint. It's like you go to a movie, you get sucked into a really good movie, you step out of the movie theater and you're like back to reality. Well, you get sucked even more so in SL when you're sharing that with other people and you're walking around or just exploring something. It's about presence together at the same time.
Yep.
And experiences, history, the amount of times that we'll talk about things that happened 2007, 2009. Do you remember in 2011 when blah 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 happened? We have those shared experiences that priceless. One of my friends used to say that we're all going to have to go to the same nursing home, because when we start talking about people by names with sexy Sarah 25554 and talk about shoes up the bottom, the nurses might get quite frightened.
That's great.
So I
You
shared
brought
the
up a good
movie
point.
link. Sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say real quick, Phil, you brought up a good point. I think young people should not be in SL, honestly. They need to be out having babies and keeping their bodies in shape and all that. It's the older crowd that has the time to be in SL or the
I think
availability.
that too. I get quite frightened when I meet a 19-year-old in Second Life and they're here and they're trying to go all in, and I think 20 years is going to go like that, and you're going to be 40 years old and actually have not lived a life, and you won't have experienced life experiences. I didn't join SL until I was already 30, and I already lived. I owned businesses, I traveled, etc. like that. So the 20 years that I didn't expect to be here, because I just came to Salsa at Transylvania and started working the second day I arrived and haven't stopped since, I would never have imagined 20 years would have gone by. So yeah,
I don't know if
I
I
don't
agree
regret
with
it,
that,
but
because time goes a lot slower for younger people than it does for older people. It's going to fly for you in SL at 30. My daughter, she still has a life, and she's in SL. My daughter is beautiful, and stunning. And she comes in SL because she's graphically and creatively inclined to this 3D environment. She likes being in here. There happens to be smarter people, I hate to say that, in here on average. So she has really stimulating conversations when she's hanging out the hubs and stuff like that. Yeah. She's not in here 24/7. She's living her life. She's got a boyfriend who's a champion in karate jiu-jitsu, and he won a silver, and she's out there living. But when she's on hanging out on a school night because she's in school, she's coming into SL and getting her social experiences. So I don't think young people shouldn't be in here. I think there needs to be a balance, but definitely not exclusion.
Yep.
I mean, I'm not saying they can't come in the door. I just meant it sort of worries me if they don't have that balance, as you say. And I'm so glad that your daughter has that balance. I'm just saying.
Well, some kids are autistic now too, so there's a lot of autistic kids in here, and this is going to be their best option for some social engagement sometimes. I know a young man, he has some severe autism issues, yet he comes in here and he has a social life he never would have in real life. And I'm sure a lot of us seen that movie that came out not too long ago about that young man that had that debilitating muscle sort of disease that started, and it wasn't Second Life. I think it was World of Warcraft or something like that. And he lived his whole life in that community, having something he wouldn't have. So some of these 19-year-olds you might be meeting, there might be some extenuating circumstances. They're not so forward to share. So it could just be the best alternative for them.
Great.
I completely agree, and I completely understand.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to make you think that I was anti them. Sorry.
I got another couple of minutes, and then I've got to go do some more Project Zero testing, just so everybody knows.
Well, I have to say, we love that you're asking for feedback and getting involved, because it seems in this group it's really working well, and it keeps everybody motivated and thinking, and I like it. So thank you for doing it.
Yeah.
Accumulating Phil friends.
It's great to see you on talking to everybody and valuing our input. That's not always been the case in the past few years.
Sarah, email me or message me afterwards. I got to jump now because I got to go test some new builds. But yeah, it's nice to see everybody. Good to see you all. This is always fun. Thanks for showing up. I very much enjoy just being able to throw down a link in the friends group. This has worked out pretty well. It's a pretty good way to do office hours and just jump in world. I didn't have any specific ideas today. Yeah, okay, sure.
Watch that movie link.
Earlier next time because that's in Europe. This is a bloody killer.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Right here.
Yeah, I got you. We will try and do that. All right, thank you.
You need to try to watch that movie if you have a chance. I'm telling you, it's absolutely hilarious. You'll be rolling. You'll be
this
rolling.
is Mr. Moose? Okay, I'll take this with me.
Okay.
All right, everyone. Good to see you.
Good to see
Talk to you later.
Wow, 296,000 views is pretty impressive.